What's up, my comic comrades? Today we break down the Amazing Spider-Man issue 11, where Spider-Man gets a new badass suit and they introduce a brand new symbiote who's probably going to be a big deal going forward. What I'm saying is this is a pretty important issue for Spider-Man, so let's get into it. All right, so the issue starts off a long time ago in simpler times where we see a young Peter Parker trying to wear his Captain America pajamas to preschool, but Uncle Ben's like, yeah, maybe not, buddy. Maybe we put on actual clothes, but Peter isn't having it, and Aunt May is not helping Ben out, telling Ben, it's preschool. Ben says all the kids are gonna laugh at him, as Aunt May says, or with him, let Peter be who he wants to be. He'll have plenty of opportunities to be something else when he grows up. We're then brought to present day where we see Aunt May looking at an old picture of her, Ben, and Pete. We also see Pete's old Captain America pajamas in the storage box she's going through. Her friend Rick then comes through the door and was like, hey, you wanna go for a walk? She's all like, it's 1 a.m, you're insane. He's like, no ma'am, I'm just attending to an insomniac friend in need. I've been told by my children that my voice can put anyone to sleep. Take a walk? She then smiles and says, I'll get my coat and a pillow in case they're right. At this point, we're brought to Peter Parker and Spider-Man facing off on top of a rooftop. Now, for those of you who haven't been reading the series, you might be confused as to how the hell Peter Parker is staring at Spider-Man when they're one and the same. Well, let's give you a little backstory. In fact, at the beginning of the issue, there's a little previously on that catches you up perfectly, and it reads as follows. Spider-Man has been missing for weeks after his defeat at the powerful glowing hands of Hellgate. The rocky, craggy Kerr told Spider-Man to get stronger and punched him out, and all went black. When Peter Parker finally returned, all he cared about was his project at Rand Enterprises, shutting out his family and friends. The kingpin of crime, Tombstone, let Shocker and the Aftershocks run rampant in Spider-Man's absence until Spider-Man reappeared and brutally and uncharacteristically put them down, severely injuring Shocker in the process. Spider-Man was then confronted by Peter Parker. Peter Parker called out the imposter Spider-Man, but Spider-Man named his successor as a pretender, meaning the Peter and Spider-Man we're currently looking at are not the real Pete and Spidey, because the real Peter is MIA. But the question is, if neither of these two are the real Peter or Spider-Man, who are they? Well, the issue is going to answer that, so let's continue. We see the fake Peter ask the fake Spider-Man, so what's your place, Spider-Man? Spider-Man doesn't answer, so the fake Pete says, silent and ominous, boring, better than diarrhea of the mouth, I guess. The Spider-Man asks, well, why are you posing as Peter Parker? Peter says, well, none of your business, suffice? The two then start fighting as captions from this Spidey say, the city needs Spider-Man for now. At least I am Spider-Man. Wearing his skin disconnects me from the past, from pain, from guilt. The liberation is, for lack of a better word, intoxicating, but also disorienting. I don't like it. On the next page, this Peter says, I'll give the threads an 8 out of 10. Obviously, they're hiding a different build, and the tech helping you out, but the real giveaway is no spider sense. No sense at all, as the Spider-Man throws this Peter into a chimney. Spider-Man then says, you're fast, strong, and agile, not as verbose either. That's a relief. Doubt you could pull off his humor, because while you're clearly book smart, you're also a dullard. And I'm sure you do not have Peter Parker's best interest in mind. Narrations from Spider-Man continue to say while he stands over this Peter, now perhaps more than any other time in my life, focus and clarity are crucial, or the dream dies. As he tells this Peter, tell me where he is, or your life is going to become extremely terrifying. This Peter then gets up as his eyes and fists radiate green as he says, you have no idea what that would take. I don't terrify easily. The Spider-Man then says, what have you done to Peter? Ben Reilly? As we see, this Peter is actually Ben Reilly, Peter Parker's clone, as we see him transform into Chasm attire and or the Chasm persona. Chasm then replies, I made him better. You, on the other hand, are completely tanking the brand. What gives you the right to call yourself Spider-Man? As he throws Spider-Man into the chimney, Spider-Man says to himself, he asked a fair question, but more telling was how he asked it. Enraged, unthinking, blinded by the heat of the moment, and I imagine plagued by the psychological scars. I wouldn't presume to plumb in this journal, as this Spider-Man makes a run for it, not wanting to fight Chasm. After Spider-Man leaves, Ben says to himself, crap, idiot, always too far, always. As Black Cat arrives saying, luckily, at least today, he may not be our Spider-Man, but at least he's got his eye on the prize. Ben? We're then taken to Harlem at Tombstone's place where we see Shocker getting bandaged up after his brutal fight with whoever is disguised as Spider-Man. Tombstone asks, how long before you could work again, Shocker? He replies, broken bones and vibration. Not ideal. Tombstone says never took pain meds before. As RX tells Tombstone, he'll be ready to rock in 3 days, Tombstone. Tombstone says, thank you, RX. Take a week, Shocker. shocker, shake it off. Tombstone then goes out to his balcony as Hobgoblin shows up, asking to talk and form an alliance. But Tombstone doesn't want any of it, so Hobgoblin flies off saying, "Don't say I didn't try. See ya in the future, Alonzo." We then see Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat, meet up with Ben Reilly at the Grand Tavern. She sits down with him and asks, "What do you know about Peter?" He replies, "He's alive." She asks, "How do you know?" He says, "Clone bond." He explains to her during his several deaths via the Scions, which took place in the Death of Spider-Man storyline, which we covered right here on the channel, that after Peter died and died and died, he felt it each time. In the same part of his consciousness where the spider sense lives, there was a void. As he tells Felicia, "I just knew." But then that space filled back up. Alive. Clone sense. So he doesn't know necessarily where Peter is, but he knows he's alive. After this interaction, we're taken to the home of this person who's impersonating Spider-Man. As he says to himself, "Tonight was valuable. Deep muscle contusion aside, I have clear data. I'm improving, keeping my emotions in check. If anyone was going to set me off, it was a clone of Peter Parker punching me through a pre-war building. Earlier tonight, before that confrontation, I was thinking of quitting. If I become an animal every time I engage, I am not valuable. I'm a liability to the dream. I cannot do that to Peter. I owe him too much. He saved my life. I will save his dream, his legacy. Can anyone blame me for choosing his over mine?" As he sits down by the fire with a drink he poured himself, taking off his mask, revealing this is Norman Osborn. That's right, Norman Osborn is currently the new Spider-Man. And the first half of the issue ends with someone having a target set on Osborn's apartment. The second half of the issue opens up with Peter on a barren planet with captions of Peter saying, "All I see is darkness. My body is alien to me now. I register cold exposure, but I feel nothing. Aside from pain, I definitely still feel pain," as he squashes an alien mouse with a rock to eat it for dinner. Captions continue to say, "There is nothing I can do but keep my head down and eke out something like survival. This is my life now." As we see, he is far, far from Earth in an unknown location. The comic then takes us to 2 weeks ago as we see Pete first arrive at this planet, but of course as weeks go on, he gets weaker and weaker. He's ultimately found by an alien ship that brings him on board. Then the book jumps to 2 weeks later to a ship called the Beacon, self-sustaining deep space research vessel. Once brought inside the ship, we see Pete is now thriving in a new uniform, helping out whoever has brought him onto the ship, lifting a container over his head while saying, "I thought you said this was heavy," as someone says, "What a fool I must be. Shall we test your muscle capacity with the gravity on?" And as the beam turns on the gravity, it becomes too heavy for Pete and he drops the container. We then see the alien who's talking to him and that Pete has become friends with him. As the alien says, "Were you frightened? If so, did you urinate? If so, can I have a sample?" Peter says, "They don't have a human resources department where you're from, do they, Dr. Starblood?" Starblood laughs and says, "Peter, my boy, we don't have humans where I'm from. Any notable data from your efforts?" Peter, while looking through his health reading, says, "No, all baseline stuff, really. Perfect health." Starblood says, "You sound disappointed considering the state I found you in." Peter says, I know, just hoping for better. Also hoping one day you wear pants under that flex suit." Starblood laughs as Peter says, "Not a joke." Starblood laughs again saying, "I know. That makes it even funnier." Narration from Peter then says, "I've spent the last few weeks running every conceivable test on myself to confirm 2 things, that I am not dreaming and that I am not dead, because this place is how I imagined heaven when I was a kid." Basically, we continue to see that Pete has become friends with this alien scientist, and we find out his real name is Xanto. As he says, "Xanto doesn't ask how I came to be on a barren planet fragment, light years from home. I don't offer. We're aligned in our respect for another's privacy, curiosity, and singular goal." As we see Peter testing his strength, lifting something that's incredibly heavy. Xanto says, "Peter, you are over 100 times stronger than 99.999% of your entire species." And Peter replies, "You're the greatest xenobiological engineer of the epoch, according to your book jacket." Pete's captions continue to say, "That feeling is electric. The words on repeat in my brain, pushing out everything else he can do. He can make me stronger. I'm reluctant to let that confidence turn into hope, but it's nice to feel something other than despair and fear. Back home on a night like this, I'd put on the suit and go out for a good long swing. Soon. Next best thing to do, a little work. Xanto, he's always complaining about the mess on the lower decks. My mind and workplace are immaculate because I have an entire sub-level 4 garbage. I'll surprise him with a little Insomniac's cleaning session, but when he gets down there, he sees a bunch of beings and creatures locked up in containment." Xanto then finds Peter saying, "Shame on me for procrastinating. Rebooting security protocols takes low priority when you're having fun." Peter says, "Too good to be true. It's always too good to be true. You said that you were experimenting on plants, non-sentient creatures." Xanto replies, "I like you, Peter. Unlike this rabble, you are smart, industrious, and going to make one hell of a book one day." Peter says, "Let them out." Xanto replies, "No, my work continues unabated. So allow me to pitch an alternative, my boy. We go back upstairs, pour a cup of ale, and discuss this like men of science. But Peter just screams, "Let them out," as he punches Xanto, but Xanto just catches the punch with one hand. As he says, "Peter, pets get beds, animals get cages. Choose pet." But Peter doesn't let up and continues to fight him. As Xanto now says, "You are in the depths of space, in my ship. What will you accomplish with this chaos?" Pete, while kicking him in the face, says, "Dignity, I think." Xanto replies, "Overrated," as he clicks the atmosphere button to make it hard for Peter to move. But Peter runs away quick enough to steal and put on Xanto's flex suit, telling us this is how Peter gets his new suit and what it is. It's the same suit that Xanto was wearing earlier that Peter was like, "I wish you would wear pants under that." In any case, Peter says to himself, with the suit on, there's a second of connection, more like an interface, and boom, it's like I'm wearing nothing at all and covered in armor at the same time. Peter then starts shooting webbing at Xanto. Xanto then says, "You like it? It's some of my best work. It takes some getting used to, especially for a primitive. But you could see now why I don't wear anything underneath the suit. I programmed the interior to feel like silk." While he's talking, he was able to blast Peter down, but the suit helps Peter block the second blast, pushing the gun out of Xanto's hand. And what's really cool is this suit seems like a mixture of tech and symbiote. Anyway, as Peter continues fighting, he says, "Look, I figured out your fancy suit. Not bad for a primitive." Xanto says, "Impossible," but Peter just replies with a super spin kick saying, "Science," knocking him out. As Peter sits on top of him saying, "Okay, it's a start," Peter then goes and lets out all the beans Xantos has trapped. As he says, "I'm sorry I didn't get here sooner, but you're all right now. I'm here to help. My name is Peter." We then see one of the beans Xantos locked up was Rocket Raccoon, and he says to Peter, "Perfect, another idiot Earth Peter to the rescue." No offense, mostly, as Peter says, "Rocket," with us seeing a little cute symbiote at the bottom right of the panel saying, "Blurp." And that, my friends, is our first appearance of Symbi, a character who apparently is going to be a big deal going forward. But there we have it, friends, The Amazing Spider-Man issue 11. I thought this was a really solid read. I love the fact that Norman Osborn is the new Spider-Man. I'm curious to see how long that lasts. And I love this new suit that Peter got. It's a mixture of like symbiote and like some kind of alien tech. And clearly Xantos had a symbiote because we see Symbi in this issue. This is a first appearance, and like I said, he's probably going to be a big deal going forward. In any case, I can't wait to see Peter come back to Earth with this new suit. At least I hope he comes back to Earth with this new suit and he wears it for a while. And then I'm curious to see what happens when he finds out that Norman has been Spider-Man in his absence. All in all, I really dig this issue. I think there's a lot of fun things being set up for Spider-Man. But what do you guys think? Are you enjoying the Spider-Man series? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Other than that, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.